Hi, everyone. I'm Tom Spring, Editorial Director at SC Media, and welcome to SC Insider Insights, where we sit down with the cybersecurity newsmakers and the sharpest minds to unpack what's working, what's not working, and where the industry goes next. Today, we're talking about microsegmentation, an important and often misunderstood tool in the Zero Trust toolkit. We're going to talk about how new microsegmentation approaches are finally making it scalable and practical. I'm joined by Chris Boehm, a field CTO for Americas at Zero Networks, a company that has been making big moves in zero trust and microsegmentation. Earlier this week, it announced a $55 million Series C funding round. It will put to immediate good use helping enterprises put the brakes on bad guys making lateral moves inside protected networks and pulling off ransomware attacks. Chris's job is to work closely with CISOs and security teams to implement headache-free zero trust solutions. Chris, word has it, you are a strong advocate for keeping things simple, smart, and secure. Chris, welcome and congratulations on the new funding. And please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for the warm welcome, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of your media. Having us hosted here, I can't express my appreciation. To quickly get into it, yes, I want things to be simple, easy, and to work. I'm not a person who wants vaporware to just magically say we're doing something. I want us to contain something and prevent attackers from going forward. And that's my mission and our company's mission, 100%.
All right. Well, again, congratulations on the $55 million in Series C funding. That's quite an accomplishment. I think it also really does speak to how the market is catching up to microsegmentation, and microsegmentation has been around for some time now. But what do you think is finally driving the urgency around microsegmentation right now and gives it so much promise?
That's a great question, Tom. One of the challenges you'll probably hear on at least at the board level or the CISO level is compliance and regulations is being enforced, or even cyber insurance. That's probably what's really driving the narrative. But when you start showing the picture of what microsegmentation can do for you as a business and how easily it can be done compared to how it's been in the past, that's where it really starts. We don't even have to explain it. We just have to show it, and it just clicks. You're like, how hard is it to do that? And that's usually the next question we have.
Well, yeah. I mean, I actually, the market is actually getting pretty busy as more companies are turning to microsegmentation. Can you talk a little bit about how Zero Networks differentiates itself in the marketplace in terms of a network-based approach, a host-based approach, application-based approach, or cloud native, or all of the above?
Yeah, we're a SaaS-based solution for those who are unfamiliar with Zero Networks. We allow you to put a NetSeg or segment server in your environment, either cloud, on-prem, whatever is necessary for our hybrid. And it allows you to learn based on that capabilities of your local infrastructure. It doesn't matter the context, Windows, Linux, OT, and we map it for you all automatically. So that's policies, enforcement, identity segmentation, network segmentation. The list is wide to provide the context for your security users, and then it just starts doing multi-factor authentication, providing microsegmentation very quickly. And we advertise it constantly on our website.
Okay, all right, great. So one of the things that gets a lot of airtime when it comes to zero trust is identity access management, but identity also presents an interesting challenge for zero trust companies like yourself when it comes to embracing microsegmentation. One of the things I'd actually love for you to unpack is how do you deal with credentials? When credentials are compromised, it often feels like you'd have all the microsegmentation you want in the world, and the attacker can just move wherever they want within that network. How does Zero Networks approach microsegmentation to help stop that kind of lateral movement before it spirals for a company?
That's a great question. It is a common challenge. I've been dealing with that in my previous career. I was on the EDR space prior to this. And after you gain access, it looks like a legitimate attacker or a legitimate user. So how would you know, right? We actually microsegmentate, or we segment our identities ourselves for our users. So we have the process and policies in place against ourselves for segmenting our credentials and making sure they do what's supposed to be done. And it requires an escalation, including what it does in your product. So if a customer did use us and they were concerned about segmentation of, okay, well, now you're allowing access because we're enforcing, that users, including the service account, is segmented. So we do it for service accounts, identity accounts, and like I mentioned, application layer. It just depends on what port and access you want done, and we can do it for you too.
Okay. Well, I heard a stat, but I don't know, like a week ago or somewhere down the path, that 70% of identities were non-human identities. And you think about, like, today, you think about the future, you think about AI agents, and you think about SaaS applications, APIs, and AI agents, and all the integration that is taking place today and that will be taking place moving forward. These types of identities moving through a segmented environment must create an enormous challenge. And again, it speaks to, how that zero trust that is has everything to do with identity access management. How do you apply that to the microsegmentation problem both at the same time and deliver like just a fantastic user experience, whether or not you're trying to work as an AI agent or have your AI agent do work for you across that segmented network?
That's a great question. And you're probably right. If it's not 70%, it will be 70% soon. A lot of things, especially with the OT space, IoT, the cloud infrastructure, huge migrations right now, everything is becoming service account driven. I'm not saying it's an easy approach. What I'm saying is we do provide contextual awareness. We have our own machine learning algorithms that provide context for our users. And the beautiful part of this, I did mention a segment server. It doesn't require an agent. So you set up a segment server in your environment, and it's agentless on all your other machines. So it doesn't require an agent everywhere, mass configuration changes, firewall configuration changes, none of that. We just incorporate with either existing stack. And that's why there's a huge traction. That's why we're getting a Series C right now, because people are seeing the value quickly and they can easily see how we're providing insights fast for them. And it's actionable. It doesn't take a 2 to 3 year plan of manually going through the process. We're actually providing that context and action very quickly. And we usually say within 30 days. So.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if this actually traces back to the Zero Networks agentless and effortless mantra in terms of what that actually means in terms of on the ground experience. Again, I would love for you to try to sort of help me better understand, like, what makes your model different than traditional segmentation for people who are not familiar with what else is or how others approach the same market.
Yeah, so microsegmentation has gotten a pretty bad rap. It's not new technology. Heck, I mean, even banks do it. They've been doing it for years on a banking level. Like, if you think of it, you go into a bank, they used to just have a teller there. Now they have guards, they have cameras, and now everything's locked up and you have little lock boxes. It's segmentation for banking. For us, it's not easy just for banks. So typically legacy tools or current tools you may be exposed to, it's static IPs. You do VLANing, you do rule-based, you do configurations, you have teams that manage this. And what really differentiates us is we're leveraging modern technology to provide that automatically with human input and context to make sure it's doing right. Our main concern is to prevent on a network layer of automatically segmenting while keeping your business running. So we provide as quickly in context as possible. That's why the machine learning is necessary up to 30 days, because we want to learn what your environment's doing, provide the best experience possible.
Okay, I mean, I think that's an important point, is that there's a learning process where I'm sure that you're going to be doing some sort of behavioral analytics in terms of understanding who the users are, who the identities are, I mean, help me out here a little bit in terms
Yeah.
of and again, I'm guessing that might speak to the root of how you handle all the different types of identities that you have to deal with.
You're exactly right, Tom. I mean, it's not just a simple context of just like, okay, we're going to do this. We're doing it based on user devices, application services, ports. We have API integrations with other existing tools. We use event logs. It's not a simple answer. That's why we tried to make the complicated simple for you. So we provide all that learning and capabilities in a simple solution.
Yeah, why has micro segmentation gotten a sort of this misnomer of being overly complicated or whatnot? I'm just wondering, is it fragile? It's not complex. I mean, what are you still hearing from CISOs and IT teams, and how are you getting them unstuck from seeing micro segmentation as something that it isn't?
I think that's part of the challenge is when we get pulled into a conversation, they've already been burned once. They deployed it. They noticed that the business was changing too rapidly. They couldn't keep up with it. It kind of comes back to like what I just mentioned. Having the capability of learning constantly, allowing you to adapt to business needs, noticing how it's actually where you're going. You have a new application layer that's having constant communications to certain resources. We now know that's what you're supposed to do, and we make it in policy and enforce it for you all automatically. That's kind of where the direction of our technology is, pushing it and educating and helping customers. And they see that bridge very quickly on the pain point they were facing in the past, because it took time and effort and, like I said, dedicated teams in order to just get this done manually.
All right. Okay. So we're gonna wrap things up a little bit. I want to thank you so much, but if you're briefing a board or a CIO tomorrow, hypothetical, on why now is the time to rethink segmentation, what would your 30-second elevator pitch be in terms of trying to catch their attention and help them better understand the value proposition?
I'll say this. Like I mentioned a little earlier, I used to be in the EDR space. I've been in the SIM space. I've been in the most informative space that you can be in the market. Unfortunately, attackers do get in. When they get in, what are they going to do? You could even have everything. That wall is hardened as brick deep as possible. But unfortunately, they still get in because it looks like you're a normal user. How are you going to handle that today? That's what I would pitch to a board. And if they're like, well, they'll never get in. Okay, well, your insurance will disagree, your customers may disagree, and even your internal staff may disagree. They could be concerned. Now, there is friction. I will not deny that. There is the multi-factor authentication onto your phone. But at that point, what is a multi-factor authentication if it's not supposed to be? Ideally, a solution should not require friction. It should just work. It should notice that my laptop talks to this server and it works. It should just work. And that's ideally where the board will be like, okay, well, let's look into this, because if it's going to really contain and help our cyber premiums and make us feel more reassured and meet those compliance and regulations, because it is in some compliances to have micro network segmentation, that's usually the direction that they will start being a focus point with customers today.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights, especially on how micro-segmentation is evolving to meet today's identity and AI-driven challenges. For those who want to learn more about Zero Networks and its approach to zero trust and lateral movement prevention, be sure to check out zeronetworks.com. I'm Tom Spring with SC Media. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on this space. Thank you.